it's time to sit back and relax with your favorite drink. And listen. Good evening, wanderers of the uncanny, and welcome once more to the threshold where ordinary life begins to warp and the dark presses its face against the glass. Tonight I'll be your guide into that uneasy territory, a place where keepsakes carry curses, where blood remembers old promises, and where the people we trust the most may hide horrors we were never meant to see. So draw the curtains, quiet your breathing, and settle close to the glow of the screen. Ahead lies a tale of inheritance gone terribly wrong, a story of a gift that cuts far deeper than its blade. Be brave enough to hear what waits beneath the surface? Then step forward and let us begin. Balancing the Books by Midnight Warlock. Part 1. The smell of pine needles and campfire smoke still clung to my clothes, a good clean kind of scent. Dad whistled off-key to an old rock song on the radio as his truck ate up the miles of asphalt, the summer sun a warm, lazy presence on my arm through the open window. It had been a perfect trip. 3 days of hiking, fishing, and surprisingly decent campfire stories from my usually quiet old man. My Eagle Scout project was still a few months off, but this camping trip felt like the best kind of practice. As the concrete sprawl of the suburbs began to replace the endless green, I felt the familiar pang of summer ending, the shadow of football practice and school books creeping in. But the memories of catching that monstrous trout with Dad, of perfecting my knots, well, those would stick. Our fuel gauge was hovering dangerously close to empty, so Dad veered off the highway into the gravel lot of a gas station that looked like it had seen better decades. Peeling paint, a crooked sign, and a faint, sweet smell of exhaust and something vaguely earthy hung in the air. While Dad filled up, I stretched my legs, wandering towards a small, makeshift store set up by the dusty roadside. An elderly Native American man sat behind a folding table, his face a road map of wrinkles, his eyes ancient and knowing. He had a fascinating array of handmade leather goods, beaded jewelry, and most prominently, a collection of knives. One knife in particular caught my eye, was pulling me in. Its handle was carved from dark, polished wood, intricately etched with symbols I didn't recognize, and the blade, though not large, gleamed with a predatory sharpness. It felt heavy, balanced, almost alive in a way no tool ever had before. A strange warmth bloomed in my palm as I reached for it, a feeling of deep, primal attraction. "That one, boy," the old man's voice was a low rasp, pulling me from my trance. "It has a history." He paused, his gaze fixed on my hand, then gestured to a polished obsidian arrowhead. "Perhaps you prefer something simpler. A good luck charm for the coming school year." I shook my head, my eyes drawn back to that knife. "No, sir. This one's incredible. What are these carvings?" He offered a small, sad smile, a flicker of something unreadable in his gaze. "They, tell a story of balance and exchange." His voice dropped then, almost to a whisper. "Some stories are best left untold. Some exchanges unmade." A shiver traced its way down my spine. But it wasn't fear, not really. More like a thrill, a deep resonance with something ancient. Just then Dad walked over, wiping his hands on a rag. "Yeah, find anything you like, Ethan?" he asked, a rare, genuine smile on his face. I held up the knife, the polished wood warm against my skin. "Oh, look, Dad, it's amazing. Perfect for my Eagle Scout stuff." Arthur took it, testing its weight, his brow furrowing slightly at the intricate carvings. He didn't seem to notice the old man's lingering, cautionary stare. "That is a fine piece," he mused, a flicker of something in his own eyes. Appreciation for craftsmanship, perhaps, or something deeper, more hidden. "A good quality knife is essential. Reminder of our trip, and for your new endeavors." He pulled out his wallet, paying the old man, who merely nodded, his gaze still fixed on the blade in my hand. A silent warning, perhaps. Back in the truck, the knife felt like a secret between me and the open road. I couldn't stop admiring it, turning it over and over in my hands. The sharpness of the blade was mesmerizing. That's when it happened. A sudden bump in the road, a momentary lapse in my focus, and the edge, far keener than I'd anticipated, sliced across my palm. It wasn't a deep cut, barely a bead of crimson welling up, but it was enough to mark the dark wood handle with a smear of my blood, a tiny, almost invisible sacrifice to the blade's ancient power. I winced, then quickly wiped it clean on my jeans, the momentary sting already fading. The warmth of the knife was still in my hand. Neither of us thought anything of it then, just an accident. The next few days blurred into the familiar routine of summer's final breath. I hung the knife on my bedroom wall, a silent guardian over my desk, its unique energy a constant subtle hum in the background of my thoughts. School started with its usual chaos. Locker combinations, new teachers, the thrilling dread of the first football practice. The last lingering scent of pine and campfire had now faded from my clothes, replaced by the sterile smell of textbooks and the faint, exciting tang of freshly cut grass from the football field. Brad Worthington was already back to his usual taunts, a buzzing fly I mostly ignored. Life in all its mundane, glorious predictability had resumed its course. Dad, too, had settled back into his rhythm. His quiet accounting job, his evening newspapers, the same steady, almost invisible presence. He'd occasionally glance at the knife on my wall, a brief, almost imperceptible nod of acknowledgement. Our lives, as they always had, flowed in parallel, rarely intersecting except for a polite conversation at dinner or Mom's insistent efforts to bridge the unspoken gaps between us. The cut on my hand healed, leaving only a faint pink line, and the strange allure of the knife became just another curiosity, a cool souvenir from a great trip. Then, about a week after we'd returned, Dad decided the truck needed a good wash. He liked to do it himself, a meticulous process he approached with the same quiet dedication he applied to everything else. I was in my room, trying to tackle a particularly thorny calculus problem, when I heard the familiar rumble of the truck starting up, then pulling out of the driveway. I barely registered it, lost in the world of quadratic equations. Later that evening, as Mom hummed in the kitchen and the scent of pot roast began to fill the house, Dad walked in, his clothes a little damp from the car wash. He moved with his usual quiet precision, but there was a subtle tension in his shoulders I hadn't seen before. He set a small object on the entryway table. The knife. My knife. He found this in the center console, he murmured, his voice a little lower than usual. Must have slipped out of your bag. He didn't meet my eyes, instead turning to hang his keys. A jolt went through me. I'd never taken the knife off my wall. Had I, in a distracted moment, moved it? I couldn't recall. As I went to retrieve it, I noticed something else. A faint crimson smear on the dark wood handle, almost imperceptible against the intricate carvings. Hey, Dad, did you cut yourself? I asked, my voice edged with concern. He paused, his back still to me. Just a little nick, he said, his voice flat. Happened when I was putting it back in the sheath. Sharp blade. He chuckled then, a dry, humorless sound that prickled the hairs on my neck. Hey, be careful with it, son. That night I lay in bed, the knife back on my wall, his presence now feeling less comforting, more watchful. The subtle harm I'd felt from it before seemed amplified, a low thrum against my subconscious. When I drifted off to sleep, the last thought in my mind a vague unease about Dad's odd demeanor. The alarm blared, a jarring intrusion. I slapped at the nightstand, my hand feeling heavy and unfamiliar. My eyelids peeled open, but the whole world looked wrong. My room, usually a familiar jumble of posters and discarded clothes, seemed to have shifted. It was larger. The light from my window was filtered through a different curtain, a pattern I didn't recognize. I sat up. My back protested with a dull ache I'd never felt before, not in my youthful spine. I swung my legs over to the side of the bed. They felt longer, heavier, covered in a sparse, dark hair that certainly wasn't mine. My feet hit the carpet, big and broad, definitely not the size 11s I was used to. Well, cold dread began to claw at my throat. I stumbled towards the full-length mirror on the back of the closet door, my heart hammering like a trapped bird. Staring back at me was Arthur, my father. His thinning hair, the familiar worry lines etched around his eyes, the slight slump in his shoulders that came from years bent over a desk. It was him, unequivocally him, but it was my mind, my terror looking out from his eyes. A silent, gut-wrenching scream tore through me, trapped behind unfamiliar vocal cords. Then from the hallway I heard it, a younger, more agile set of steps, the distinct sound of my feet. A voice, bright and clear and absolutely terrifyingly mine, calling out, "Morning, Dad. You gonna hog the shower all morning?" The blood drained from my face, or rather from Arthur's face. My voice, my perfect, athletic young voice, resonating from beyond the bathroom door. A wave of nausea hit me, and I stumbled back, catching myself on the dresser. This wasn't a nightmare, this was real, and utterly, horrifyingly impossible. My mind raced, grappling with this impossibility. The knife, 2 cuts, the old man's warning. Exchange. Well, it all slammed into me with the force of a linebacker. "Hey, Dad, you okay in there?" The voice was closer now, laced with a familiar, youthful impatience. It was me, Ethan, impatiently asking his father to hurry up. A fresh wave of panic tightened in my chest. I couldn't just walk out there. What would I say? How would I explain this? My reflection, Arthur's reflection, stared back at me, a stranger in my own head. My hands, large and slightly trembling, went to the doorknob. My stomach churned. I had to face this. So I took a deep breath, trying to mimic my father's calm, almost detached demeanor, the facade I now desperately needed to wear. I opened the door. There, leaning against the doorframe, was me, or rather, my body. My youthful face, my well-muscled arms, the slightly too long hair that Mum always complained about. But the eyes, they weren't mine. I held a glint of something I'd never seen in my own reflection, a disturbing mix of confusion and an almost giddy amusement. "Morning, Ethan," I rasped, the words feeling foreign on Arthur's tongue. "Morning, Dad," the figure in my body replied, a smirk playing across my lips. "You look like you've seen a ghost." I pushed off the doorframe, moving with a fluid grace that was unmistakably my own, yet imbued with an odd, deliberate swagger. "Shower's all yours. Don't want to be late for work, do we?" The words were casual, but the underlying tone was off, as if he was trying on a new suit, testing how it felt. He clapped me, my actual body, on the shoulder, a casual gesture that felt invasive, violating. The next hour was a blur of surreal horror. We found Mom already at the kitchen table, oblivious. We somehow managed to choke down breakfast, me, as Dad, answering Mom's questions about his workday with vague grunts, and him, as Ethan, expertly deflecting inquiries about football practice with practiced ease. He even managed a few jokes, my jokes, delivered with uncanny accuracy. The casual deception was nauseating. When Mom finally left for her yoga class, the house fell into a terrifying silence. "Okay," I finally managed, my voice still raspy, the sound of my father's vocal cords still unsettling. "What the hell is going on?" My body stretched languidly, like a cat. "You tell me, Dad. One minute I'm dreaming about the Ravens game, the next I'm looking at your receding hairline in the bathroom mirror." Well, there was no panic in his voice, only a strange, unsettling curiosity. No, more than curiosity, a sense of opportunity. "It's the knife," I whispered, pointing vaguely towards my bedroom. The old man warned us. In exchange, it must have been the cuts, both our blood on it. He nodded slowly, my thoughtful expression on his face. Ah yes, that peculiar trinket. Always knew there was something interesting about it. He stood up, walking to the living room window, looking out at the perfectly manicured lawn, his hands, my hands, clasped behind his back. It was a posture Dad often adopted when deep in thought. We have to fix this, I insisted, the terror bubbling up again. I have school, you have work. We can't just be each other. He turned, my eyes meeting mine. A cold, assessing gaze I'd never recognized in myself then. Oh, I think we can, Ethan. For now, you go to work. Try not to mess up my books too badly. And I'll go to school. See what the youth of today are up to. There was a predatory gleam in my eyes that sent a fresh shiver down my spine. No, I cried, stepping forward. Then I remembered I was in my father's aging body. You can't just pretend to be me. What about football? My friends? What if someone finds out? He merely smiled, a chillingly confident smile that was once mine. Relax, son. I'm a quick study. I imagine being the popular football captain won't be too difficult. Might even be invigorating. The casualness of his tone, the way he dismissed my entire life, was sickening. He picked up my backpack, slinging it over my shoulder with a practiced ease that made me want to scream. Don't fret, Arthur. I'll make sure your accounts are in order. Try not to draw too much attention to yourself at the office. Just be your usual quiet self. And he winked, a gesture that used to be playful coming from me, but now, on my face, was utterly sinister. And then he was out the door, whistling my favorite pre-game tune, leaving me, Ethan, trapped in my father's skin, utterly alone and utterly terrified. Part 2. The drive to Arthur's office was a masterclass in panic. I, Ethan, a 17-year-old football captain, was now operating a 40-something-year-old's accountant's body, driving a sensible sedan, wearing a cheap, slightly too tight suit. Every sensation was alien. The ache in my lower back, the way my dad's eyes needed to focus a little harder on the road signs. The unfamiliar weight on my chest, a heaviness that had nothing to do with anxiety and everything to do with cholesterol. I fumbled with the keycard in the parking garage, my large unfamiliar hands feeling clumsy as sausages. The office of Pendleton and Associates was exactly as beige and mind-numbing as I'd always imagined. A polite middle-aged woman named Sarah looked up from the reception desk. "Morning, Arthur. You're in early." She smiled. Yeah, morning, Sarah. Just up early," I mumbled, the voice raspy and deep. It was like hearing a stranger speak from my own throat. I made my way to the cubicle that apparently belonged to me. A photo of Mum and me sat on the desk. I was grinning, holding up the trout from our trip. God, my stomach twisted. I sat down, the ergonomic chair squeaking in protest. I stared at the computer screen. The spreadsheet was open. Numbers, thousands of them. God, I felt a wave of dizzying vertigo. I was supposed to be in pre-calculus right now, not this. I tried to click through the files, just to look busy. I opened a file then called Personal. That was just tax documents, mortgage statements. Boring, mundane. I leaned back, rubbing my dad's temples, a migraine starting to bloom behind my eyes. A younger man, probably in his late 20s, leaned over the cubicle wall, a stack of folders in his hand. "Hey, Artie, got those quarterly projections for you to look over. Pendleton wants them by lunch." I stared at him blankly. Artie? "Hey, thanks, Mark," I said, reading the name off his ID badge. Mark frowned. "Hey, you okay, man? You look off." "It's Ted, not Mark." "Oh, yeah, right, Ted. Oh, I'm sorry. Long night." Ted dropped the folders on my desk. "Yeah, well, Don't let it bleed into today. These numbers are a mess, and I need your sign-off. He tapped a cell on the top sheet. Well, the depreciation schedule looks creative. Not sure how you're justifying it. I looked at the column of numbers. God, it was gibberish. I felt a flush of hot panic. Yeah, I'll look at it. You do that, Ted said, walking away. As he turned, I felt a sudden cold flash of rage. Not my hot-headed football anger, but something different. A cold, methodical hatred. He's inefficient, sloppy, always passes his work off. He leaves his car keys on his desk when he goes to the bathroom. 3rd floor parking garage, blue Honda. Easy to follow. He lives alone. My thought was so clear, so precise. It was like a voice in my head. My dad's head. I gripped the desk, my knuckles turning white. Where did that come from? I shook my head, trying to clear it. That's when it happened. The echo. It wasn't a thought, it was a memory. A flash of imagery so vivid it overlaid the beige cubicle. Different room. Dark. Smell of copper and bleach. A woman's face, her eyes wide with a terror so profound it stole my breath. Her mouth was open in a scream, but no sound came out. I gasped, lurching forward, knocking the cup of pencils onto the floor. Sarah glanced over, her brow furrowed. Arthur, you all right? You look like you've seen a ghost. Fine, I'm fine, I choked out, bending to pick up my pencils, my heart hammering. Just a dizzy spell. What was that? A dream? An hallucination? It happened again an hour later. I was staring at the spreadsheet and the numbers began to shift. They weren't numbers. They were a sequence, a combination. 220814. My birthday. August 14th. 2022. No, that wasn't right. My birthday was August 14th, so not just my birthday, just 220814. Well, the memory flash was insistent. This was a combination. I tried to focus on the work, I really did. But the numbers just swam. I clicked on another file. Expenses. It was just receipts. Gas, groceries, and hardware. Lots of hardware. Bleach, heavy-duty trash bags, lime, zip ties. For gardening, I muttered, the words feeling like a lie on my dad's tongue. Sudden, jarring need washed over me then. I need to go home, not to my room, not to the living room, to the basement. I tried to fight it. I'd envisioned myself leaving work, saw myself stand up, walk into the elevator, riding down to the garage. Got in the sedan. I didn't even consciously decide to drive home. My dad's hands just did it, following the familiar, mindless route. Stood up from the desk, my chair scraping loudly. Sarah, I'm not feeling well, I said. My voice was strained. I'm going to take a half day. Oh, of course, Arthur. I hope it's nothing serious. You've been so quiet since your trip. Just tired, I lied, and all but fled the office. The drive home was a blur. The house was empty. Mom, Helen, was at her yoga class. My body was at school. Damn, the silence was oppressive. I went to the basement door. It was locked, as it always was. Dad had always said his workshop was for work, full of sensitive client files and boring equipment. Well, I'd never questioned it. Now a cold certainty guided my hand. I walked to the den, to the bookshelf that dominated one wall. My dad's hand reached out, without my conscious thought, to a worn, leather-bound copy of Moby Dick. Tucked into the spine, so deep you'd never see it, was a small brass key. My own hands were trembling as I returned to the basement door. The key slid in, and the lock clicked. I flipped the light switch. The bare bulb illuminated a set of steep wooden stairs. The air that rose up to meet me was cold, sterile, and carried the same faint, earthy smell I'd noticed at the gas station, now mixed with the acrid tang of bleach. Well, the basement wasn't a workshop. Well, not for accounting. It was clean, horrifyingly clean. The concrete floor was painted grey and looked recently scrubbed. To one side, a large metal table sat in the centre of the room, a drain set into the floor beneath it. On the far wall, a pegboard held an array of tools. Hammers, saws, pliers, scalpels, shears, all arranged with a surgeon's precision. Each tool had a black tape outline showing where it belonged. My dad's legs carried me to the metal table. I reached out a trembling hand and touched the surface. It was freezing cold. Another flash, this one tactile, overwhelming. The feeling of cold metal against bare skin, the slick, coppery smell, the quiet, methodical sound of scrubbing, a low off-key whistle, the same song from the truck. I recoiled, stumbling back, my stomach churning. I looked at the pegboard, my gaze fixed on a ball-pen hammer. My dad's hand reached out, plucked it from its hooks. God, the weight felt perfect, balanced. My dad's fingers wrapped around the handle, my thumb finding a worn groove. God, it felt right. A wooded area, night, the sound of rain on leaves, a thud, a crack, the feeling of pure cold satisfaction. A job well done. I dropped the hammer. It clattered onto the concrete with a deafening noise. I was breathing in short, sharp gasps now. This wasn't just a body, it was a vessel. My God, it was full of his darkness. And in the corner, a large black fireproof filing cabinet. The combination? 220814. My fingers, Arthur's fingers, felt numb as I turned the dial. The handle turned. I pulled the drawer open. It wasn't client files. The top drawer was full of notebooks, dozens of them. Simple black composition books. I pulled one out. The handwriting was my father's, meticulous and precise. August 11th, 2003. Subject CM, female, 24, hitchhiker. Complained about the rain. Now she won't complain about anything. Dispersal in 6 locations. Efficient. I dropped the book. A strangled noise ripping from my throat. I grabbed another. March 2nd, 2007. Subject TR, male, 31. Co-worker. Inefficient, sloppy, followed from office, blue Honda, lived alone, an easy, satisfying removal. No one will miss him. Dispersal. Ted. Not Mark, Ted. My mind flashed to the man in the office. Blue Honda, lived alone. Oh God, had he... frantically searched for a date on Ted's folders. 2025. Oh, this was 2007. A different Ted. A different sloppy co-worker. My father had been doing this for decades. I staggered back, gagging, my mind refusing to process what I was seeing. I fell against the metal table, the cold stinging my hands. I looked at the next drawer. It was labeled trophies. My stomach heaved. God, I didn't want to look, but I had to look. I pulled it open. It was full of small, mundane items. A single earring, a driver's license, the photo of a smiling college-aged girl, a cheap plastic keychain from a gas station, one I recognized, the one just off the highway, a lock of blonde hair tied with a blue ribbon, a class ring, a single muddy running shoe. This was my father, my quiet, boring, salt-of-the-earth father. He wasn't an accountant. He was a monster. A new memory, sharper this time, sliced through my panic. A young man, skinny and pimpled, maybe 16. He's cornered against a locker. A bigger boy, a jock with a shock of red hair, is laughing and shoving him. "What's wrong, Arthur? Gonna cry? Gonna tell your mommy?" The rage, it was blinding. A cold, pure, methodical rage. Not hot like mine, not a flash of temper. It was a freezing, calculated hatred. A promise. I stumbled back up the stairs, slamming the door, locking it, fumbling to put the key back in the book. I scrubbed my hands in the kitchen sink, scrubbing until my dad's skin was raw. I couldn't get the feeling of the cold metal table off me. The front door opened then. "Dad, I'm home." My blood ran cold. I turned, my heart a block of ice. There I stood, my body, my face, grinning, flushed with exertion from football practice. My backpack was slung over my shoulder. "Rough day at the office?" I asked. But the voice was wrong. It was my voice, but the casual, predatory confidence in it was all Arthur. God, he was loving this. He tossed my bag on the floor, went to the fridge, and poured out a Gatorade, chugging it with my youthful vigor. You, I couldn't speak. "What's wrong, old man?" he smirked, wiping my mouth on the back of my hand. "See a ghost?" He was referencing my own words from the office. He'd heard me, or... no, he was just mocking me. Practice was exhilarating," he said, rolling my shoulders. This body. I'd forgotten what it felt like. The power, the speed. No aches, no limitations. Brad Worthington. I suddenly remembered my bully. What about Brad? Did he... Arthur's smile on my face was the most terrifying thing I'd ever seen. Young Mr. Worthington. He was boisterous. He tried a cheap shot. I put him on his back. He chuckled then. Then I whispered a little anatomical fact in his ear about how easy it would be to sever a femoral artery in that position. I don't think he'll be a problem anymore. God, he wasn't just thriving. He was refining his tactics. "And Jessica," he continued, naming my girlfriend. "Oh, she's lovely, so trusting. She told me about her plans for the pep rally. Oh, the little back hallways, the supply closets." "You leave her alone," I roared, my dad's voice cracking. "Or what?" I shot back, my face twisting into a sneer. "You'll file a complaint? This body's a gift, Ethan. A key. It opens doors your old, shuffling form never could. People like me. They trust me." I was living in a nightmare. My father, a serial killer, was wearing my skin. "We have to switch back," I whispered, my voice desperate. "Now, the knife, where is it?" "Oh, it's safe," Arthur said, his eyes glittering. "It's in your new locker. A place you'd never look. You see, I've been thinking, Ethan, this exchange, as the old man called it, it's a gift, a new lease of life. And I have, let's just say, unfinished business." "What? What do you mean?" "High school," he said, his voice dropping, the giddy amusement replaced by that same cold rage I'd felt in the memory flash. "I've got a, reunion of sorts. All those years sitting in that beige box, I'd think about them. The ones who laughed, the ones who thought I was nothing. They're still there, you know. Still laughing, just older." My blood turned to ice. "The teachers." He smiled. "Mr. Henderson, history. Always loved to make an example of me. That red-haired bastard still thinks he's king of the school. Mrs. Gable, English. Called my writing disturbed. Can you imagine? Disturbed. And Principal Davis, always taking their side. always protecting the bullies. You're gonna hurt them. Hurt them? He laughed, a bright youthful sound from my own chest. No, Ethan, I'm gonna balance the books. And the best part? You would ever suspect the popular all-star football captain? They'll probably think it's that little outcast, Brad Worthington, who's been acting so jumpily lately. Or maybe they'll think you finally snapped, Arthur. Quiet accountant. Oh, it's always the quiet ones, isn't it? Who's going to frame someone? Who's going to use my life, my body, to commit murder? When? I demanded, trying to sound like Arthur, the father, the authority. Back to school night, of course, he said, as if it were obvious. Tomorrow. The whole school will be there. The pep rally in the gym. Oh, so much noise, so much distraction. I'll get Henderson in his classroom. Just need to discuss a grade. Gable in the faculty lounge. And Davis? Davis I'm saving for last. In his own office. It's perfect. He clapped me on my dad's shoulder, the same invasive, violating gesture from the morning. Don't you worry, Dad. You just go to work. Be a quiet, invisible self. I'll handle school. He grabbed an apple from the counter, bit into it with a resounding crunch, and jogged up the stairs to my room, my music blaring a moment later. I was left alone in the kitchen, trapped in the body of a middle-aged man who was, I now knew, a meticulous, patient, and ruthless serial killer. And his son, my body, was about to become one too. Part 3. The next 24 hours were a slow-motion descent into hell. Dinner was torture. Mom, Helen, was oblivious. Ethan, you've just been so present lately, and talkative, she beamed, serving the pot roast. Usually you just grunt and run off to your room. Arthur, as Ethan, gave her my most charming smile. I'm just appreciating things more, Mom. Right, Dad? He looked at me then, his eyes glittering with malice. Yeah, right, I grunted, pushing food around my plate. And Arthur? Helen said, turning to me. You seem so tense. You should take more trips with Ethan. It's clearly done him a world of good. You're all wound up. You need to relax. I'm fine, Helen, I muttered. He's just worried about those depreciation schedules, aren't you, Dad? Arthur, as Ethan chimed in, perfect imitation of youthful teasing. Gotta make sure those numbers line up. The casual, layered cruelty of it made me want to scream. He was taunting me with my own incompetence, his own dark work. That night was worse. I spent the night in Arthur's bed next to my wife, my mother. I lay rigid on the very edge of the mattress, not sleeping. Just lay there, a cold, aging stranger, listening to the steady breathing of a woman who had no idea the two men in her house were both monsters. One by choice, one by infection. Every time I closed my dad's eyes, I got more of them. The memories, not just flashes of violence, but the resentment. Helen, laughing at a party years ago. Oh, Arthur, he's just steady. My rock. The way she said steady sounded like boring. The feeling of rage of being patronized. Helen, balancing the checkbook. Arthur, this gardening hobby of yours is expensive. All this bleach. Are you sure you know what you're doing? The flash of panic quickly masked. The cold thought. She's too curious. Inefficient. I sat bolt upright then, drenched in a cold sweat that was not my own. I was starting to feel it. Arthur's darkness. His justifications. I was starting to feel his impatience with Helen. His contempt for the sheep in his office. I looked at my mom's sleeping form, and for a terrifying split second I felt Arthur's cold assessment. The infection was spreading. The next day I didn't go to the office. I called in sick. my voice a passable imitation of Arthur's monotone. "Sarah, I'm very ill. I won't be in." I hung up before she could ask questions. I spent the day preparing. I tried to call the police. I dialed 911 from Dad's burner phone, one I'd found in his desk drawer. 911, what's your emergency? I want to report a planned murder. Okay, sir. Who's planning it? My son, but it's my husband. He's in my son's body. He's a serial killer. Silence. Then, "Sir, have you been drinking? Is this a prank call?" I slammed the phone down. Insane. I sounded insane. I went back to the basement. I couldn't just stop him. I had to prove it. I took the notebooks, all of them. I stuffed them into Arthur's briefcase. Well, it would be a start. But I knew that wouldn't be enough to stop him tonight. He was in my body. He was strong. I looked at my dad's soft hands. Went to the pegboard. The tools, the cold, precise rage from the memory flash. It was no longer an echo. It was a hum. I found myself weighing the ball-peen hammer in my hand. The balance was good. I saw a flash. A wooded area. The sound of a skull cracking. I didn't drop it this time. I felt a sudden, terrifying understanding of why he hated Mr. Henderson. I could almost justify it. He's a bully. Bullies need to be corrected. When I shook my head, my own, Ethan's panic cutting through this foreign rage. I had to stop this. I had to get my body back. The knife. The exchange. It was the only way. I had to get the knife. He said it was in my locker. But I couldn't just take the knife. I needed leverage. I needed a weapon he wouldn't expect. I tucked the hammer into the waistband of my dad's slacks. Felt cold against his soft back. But I had to try one more thing. I got in the sedan and drove. Drove back out to the highway to the dusty gravel lot. It was empty. The gas station was still there, but the stall, the old man, the table of knives, all gone. Just an empty patch of dirt, as if it had never been there at all. There was no one to ask for help. I was completely and utterly on my own. School was a zoo. Banners for the first prep rally hung from the rafters. Parents and students milled about. The gym was thumping with pop music, a bass line of chaos. I moved through the crowd, a ghost. I was invisible, just another dad. I saw her face searching for me. She was looking for Arthur. I ducked into a hallway, my heart pounding, the hammer a cold, heavy weight against my spine. Helen. I saw Jessica, my girlfriend, laughing with her friends, her cheerleader uniform bright under the fluorescent lights. Arthur, as Ethan, was nowhere to be seen, though. He was already starting. I had to get to my locker. I still knew the combination. 12-30-06. I got to the athletics hallway. It was mostly empty, the noise from the gym a dull roar. I spun the dial, my dad's clumsy fingers fumbling. The lock clicked. I pulled it open. It was empty. My calculus textbook, my gym clothes all gone, and no knife. Of course, he'd lied, or he'd told the truth knowing I'd be too late. Cleaned out the locker and taken the knife long before I could ever get there. He was toying with me, sending me on a cold trail. A new wave of panic, cold and sharp, hit me. I had no knife. I had no way to switch us back. I was trapped. So I ran. My dad's legs ached. His lungs, my lungs burned. Henderson's room, Gable's room, both empty. The faculty lounge, empty too. The principal's office? The gym music was at a fever pitch now. I could hear the cheerleaders starting a routine. No one was in the administration wing. The door to Principal Davis's office was slightly ajar. I heard a thud, then a muffled groan. I pushed the door open, my hand gripping the hammer in my waistband. Principal Davis was on the floor, his glasses askew, a bloody gash on his forehead. And there I was. My body, my football jersey, standing over him, the cursed knife in my hand, gleaming. Arthur looked up. His face, my face, a beautiful, terrifying mask of triumph. "Hello, Dad." He smiled. "Come to see the show? You're just in time for the main event." "Get away from him," I rasped, pulling the hammer free. It was my only weapon. Arthur laughed, a bright, youthful sound. "With that? In this body?" He gestured to my dad's paunch. "This body is incredible, so much potential." He took a step toward me, toying with a knife. "Hey, I'm faster, stronger, and I have decades more experience in this than you do." "Why?" I demanded, trying to keep him talking, my grip slick with sweat on the hammer. "They're just old men." "They're not." My face snarled, the charm vanishing, replaced by the pure, undiluted rage of the skinny, bullied teenager. "They're the same. They still laugh. They still looked at me and saw nothing. Now they'll see." He lunged. God, it wasn't even a contest. He was me, a 17-year-old athlete. I was a 40-something-year-old accountant. He batted the hammer from my hand with a contemptuous flick of his wrist. It clattered down into the corner. He shoved me against the wall. My strong young hands wrapped round my dad's throat. I was being strangled by my own hands. Such a disappointment, Ethan, Arthur wheezed with my voice, straining with the effort of killing me. "And don't worry, I'll take such good care of your mother." My vision was tunneling. The spots danced before my eyes. I was dying. The knife. He was strangling me with one hand, his right hand, and the knife was in his left, my left, held casually at his side. He was enjoying this, drawing it out. I was fading. The cold, analytical part of my dad's brain took over. He's overconfident. He's left-handed. His grip's on the corduroid. He's not crushing the windpipe. He wants to watch. Inefficient. With the last of my strength, my dad's clumsy hand fumbled, not for the knife, but for the desk. My fingers hit the heavy, old-fashioned stapler. "We have to switch back," I choked out. "Never," he screamed, his face contorting, raising the knife for the final theatrical blow. I swung the stapler, all my dad's way behind it, aiming not for his face, but for his knife hand, my knife hand. It connected with a sickening crunch of bone, my bones. I screamed, a real agonized scream of my own voice. His grip on my dad's throat vanished as he clutched my broken hand, and the knife clattered to the floor. You broke it," I shrieked, cradling my wrist. "We have to switch," I roared, diving for the fallen knife. I got my fingers on the handle. Oh, he kicked me, my football-trained leg connecting with my dad's ribs. I heard a crack. Pain was blinding, white-hot, but I had the knife. He was on me in an instant, his one good hand, his right hand, fumbling for my throat again. But he was sloppy now, angry, inefficient. I had the knife. I knew I couldn't stab him, he was too strong. I couldn't win. So I did the only thing I could. I raised the knife and, with a final desperate roar, I sliced it deep across my own, Arthur's palm. Pain was electric. Arthur screamed in surprise, recoiling from the spray of blood. I lunged, not to stab, but to cut. He was on top of me, his good hand, his right, scrambling for my dad's face. I grabbed my right wrist with my dad's bloody left hand, smearing his blood onto my skin. With Dad's right hand holding the knife, I sliced the razor-sharp blade across the back of Ethan's hand. Our blood mixed on the blade. Our blood mixed on our skin. A flash of light, brighter than a camera, a sound like a thunderclap inside my skull. The world inverted, dissolved, and reformed. I was on the floor, my 17-year-old body screaming in agony. The air rushed back into my lungs. My left hand, was a mess of broken bones. My right hand was on fire, bleeding profusely. My ribs were broken. Across the room, my father, Arthur, was getting to his feet, back in his own skin. He looked down at his bleeding hand, then at me. The killer was back. "You little brat," he hissed, his face a mask of pure, unadulterated hatred. He saw the knife on the floor between us. He took a step toward it. Principal Davis groaned. Arthur was going to kill us both, finish the job. The sound of sirens, suddenly, deafeningly close. Arthur's eyes widened. He froze. Footsteps, shouting. The door burst open. 2 police officers, guns drawn. "Police, drop the weapon, get on the ground." Arthur stared at them, then at me, trapped. Before I'd gone into the office, I'd used my dad's cell phone, the burner. I'd called 911. I'd reported a man acting erratically with a knife in the principal's office. I'd given them a perfect description of my father. I'd left the line open in my dad's pocket. They'd heard the whole thing, the threats, the fight, everything. He raised his bleeding hands. He looked at me, and in that moment, I saw the monster in its purest form. A look that promised that this was not over. He dropped the knife. 2 months later. The cast was off my left wrist. The scar on the back of my right hand was a faint pink line. It matched the one on my Arthur's palm, which I'd seen as they'd led him away. My ribs still ached when it was cold. Souvenirs, I guess. Life was not normal, but it was pretending to be. My dad was in a state psychiatric hospital, awaiting trial. The notebooks I'd given the police, combined with the 911 call, had been more than enough. The trophies, the basement. Mom was a wreck. She was living in a fog in a small apartment across town. She'd sold the house. She refused to believe it. "He was sick, Ethan," she'd whisper, clutching my hand. "That thing in the basement wasn't him. He was a good man." She'd look at me sometimes, searching my face as if she knew something was different. "You've been so cold since it happened." I'd just nod. "I'm fine, Mom." I was at football practice. The air was crisp, the smell of cut grass sharp and clean. It felt good. My body felt right. Brad Worthington, back to his old, insecure self, slammed into me with a late, cheap tackle. "Eat dirt, Eagle Scout," he sneered, trying to regain his lost dominance. I hit the ground. The smell of pine and campfire flashed in my mind then, sharp and sudden. I got up. I wasn't angry, I wasn't hurt, I felt nothing. Just a cold, clear calculation. I looked at Brad, but I wasn't seeing Brad. I was seeing a memory clear as day. Teenage Arthur, skinny and scared, being shoved into a locker by a laughing jock with red hair. Mr. Henderson. The memory faded. I was back on the field. Brad was laughing, expecting me to shove him back, to yell. I just smiled. The slow, cold, confident smile that wasn't mine. "It's just a game, Brad," I said, my voice perfectly friendly. I clapped him on the shoulder, my grip a little too tight, my thumb pressing just so on the nerve cluster above his collarbone. He winced, his smile faltering, a jolt of pain shooting down his arm. "You just have to know the rules, I said, and the weak points. I turned and walked back to the huddle, leaving him rubbing his shoulder, confused and, for the first time, a little afraid. As I walked, my hand brushed against the new hunting knife in my pocket. The old one was in an evidence locker, but I'd found I just liked the feel of one. The weight, the balance. I looked across the field at the faces of my teammates, at the coaches, at the setting sun. The rage I'd felt from my father, his cold, patient, calculating hatred, it was still there. A quiet hum in the back of my mind, a voice that analyzed, that catalogued. Inefficient, sloppy, weak. The old man had been right. It was a story of balance. My father was locked away, but his history was not. The exchange, I realized, had never been fully reversed. He was gone, but his darkness was here to stay. That night, I went back to my new apartment, a small place I shared with 2 other guys from the team. I unlocked my bedroom door, and opened the desk drawer, took out the new hunting knife and a simple black composition book. I opened it to the first page. I picked up a pen, and I wrote, Subject, BW, male, 17, bully, inefficient, sloppy. My handwriting was steady, meticulous, precise. So the moral of that story is never buy an enchanted knife from a Native American man outside a gas station. It can only lead to bad things. Is that the moral? I don't know. Yeah, it's as good as anything else, I guess. Well, yeah, that was deliciously evil. Oh, twisted and turned. Wasn't sure where that was going, but okay, very satisfying story. I really enjoyed that one. Many thanks to the author. Wonderful work. Yes, first time I've done one of your stories, I think, isn't it? Yeah. Anyway, that was lovely. Thoughts, feelings, anything you want to share in the comment section, and as ever, I'll do my best to join in the conversation. That is your Friday evening's entertainment. This cold, miserable end of November day here. So I hope that helped keep you warm. And of course, if you're on the other side of the earth, down south, I hope that was a nice summer evening's entertainment for you. I forget sometimes. Anyway, waffling on. Have a lovely weekend, everyone. I'll be back again probably on Sunday night. Till then, remember, it's just a story, and you sleep well, yeah? Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this story today. Really means a lot to me and to the author of the story, of course. Well, if you want to know more about me, I'm pretty much everywhere on social media. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can download my music on SoundCloud. I've got a Patreon if you feel like. Throw me $1 or $2. Very much appreciated. And of course, on Reddit, I have a place where you can leave stories if you want me to read one that you've written. Well, hoping to see you all again very soon. Till then, sweet dreams. Bye-bye.